Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On Monday, October 6th, we had a very special guest at Mount Pleasant High School. Mr. Jim Tooman is a nationally recognized motivational speaker, and we were very privileged to have him address our student body in an assembly program during the morning. He was extremely well received by the student body. That evening, he also had a follow-up program for parents. I was very, very gratified to see approximately 400 parents attend that session. It also was very well received. Students are still talking about the impact that Jim Tooman has had in our school. As a follow-up, we are in the process of organizing some student support groups. There will be an organizational meeting on Monday, October the 20th at 7 p.m. Over 260 of our students expressed an interest to have some type of follow-up support group. It is our pleasure to share with you this evening the assembly program of Jim Tooman. Thank you.
We have a very special guest with us this morning. I'm proud to introduce to you Mr. Jim Tooman. He comes with outstanding credentials and a fantastic reputation, and some of you students have heard him speak before. I'll give a brief introduction and then we'll start with the program. Can I have your attention, please? Jim Tooman graduated from Michigan State University. He's developed 3 national programs dealing with youth, women, and returning veterans. He has appeared on ABC, NBC, and CBS National News, The Today Show, Our Magazine, National PM Magazine, and the Charles Crop Morning Show. He's been featured in Newsweek, USA Today, Business Week, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, the Detroit Free Press, and the Detroit News. He's been the subject of a half-hour documentary show nationwide in Japan during March of 1984. Jim Tooman believes in balance in his life and so has done such diverse things as being a circus clown, a rodeo rider, a symphony musician, a cake decorator, and a parade enthusiast. He recently spent part of the summer in 1985 working as a famine relief worker in Ethiopia. And he spent part of the summer of 1983 as a roadie with the rock group Journey. With that introduction, I now present Jim Tooman.
Who's the most important person you know? Me. Wait, give me a break. Who's the most important person you know? Yourself. Who's the most important person you know? Yourself. Who's the most important person you know? You. Wait! Shh. Everyone, wait. I never use a mic, so if you can't hear on the back, and I work in the audience all the time, so please, just if you can, listen up, because you never know where I'm going to be in terms of the audience. Who's the most important person you know? You. Who's the most important person you know? You. Who's the most important person you know? You. Who's the most important person you know? I'm glad to hear that all of you said that. I'm glad to hear that all of you said that. But many of you said it really reluctantly. Many of you were uncomfortable in saying that. Every one of you in this room can influence thousands of people in your life. What are you going to be able to give them if you don't feel good enough about yourself to give them something? 3 months ago, I was coming back from Chicago after being on the road for 5 straight days working at this level of intensity. I had done 5 schools and I was tired. And I just wanted a break. And I stopped along the way and just went off into a small restaurant, walked all the way down to the end of the counter and just sat there, grabbed a newspaper and just wanted to be by myself. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to even I just gave the order to the waitress behind the counter. I just wanted to be by myself. There was probably 15 empty seats on that counter. A guy walked in, saw me down at the end of the counter and walked over and sat down right next to me and just turned around and said hi. Immediately, the first thing I did was I pulled back the paper and I just smiled at him and I just put the paper back up because I didn't want to talk to him. And he sat there and he started talking to me. And the more he talked, the more I listened, and finally I put down the paper. It turned out that this guy was a workaholic. Had built a small business in Northern California, was 38 years old. 1 month before, he had gone in for a routine physical. Found out he had leukemia, had less than 6 months to live. Sold his business within a week, sold his home, took off around the country, just seeing the things that he had always missed working 18-hour days. And I listened to this man. He was so sensitive and so caring that I found myself just being touched by what he said. And I walked out to my car, got behind the wheel, and I didn't even look back because I knew I'd never see this guy again as long as I lived. And I found myself driving away and crying. In 1 hour's time, this man influenced me more than people who have been in my life for 30 years. Every one of you has that opportunity. Unfortunately, we are so busy working off of other people's standards that we can't see our own value. Let me show you something. What's your first name? Amy. Amy, let's assume that everybody in this school, Amy, got together. Everybody in this school got together and decided that you were absolutely the ugliest person that they had ever seen. Wait. And everywhere you went, Amy, people pointed to you and said, wow, there goes Amy. She is so ugly. It's incredible. And wherever you went down the halls, people were whispering behind your back. And even when you went home, your parents locked you in the bedroom for 2 hours because you were so ugly. How do you feel, Amy, if enough people tell you you're ugly? Feel bad. Actually, I picked on Amy because Amy is really attractive. Let's assume that everybody in the school, Amy, on the other side of the coin got together and said, wow, Amy's a great friend. She's always there when I need someone to talk to. She always seems to care about me. She's a real caring person. How do you feel if enough people tell you you're great? You feel good. What have we done to Amy in the span of 30 seconds? We've taken her from feeling ugly about herself to feeling great about herself just because all of you have decided that's how she should feel and you buy into it. You allow it to happen. Every time I tell this story, something inside of me, it's too personal. Something inside of me just opens up. It's like a continuous wound, but I tell it out of a tribute to a young man. I have very good friends in Detroit who have 5 children age range 19 to 14. And every time I'm in Detroit, which is really frequently these days because I'm out speaking so much, I have an open invitation to go to their house. I call them up and they say, hey, listen, come on over for dinner. Just drop in, we'll leave the key underneath the mat. And I always make it a point just to call to find out how the family is doing. And I've been doing this probably about 10 years. Anyway, in the last 3 years, I've been noticing something changing, completely changing. Whenever I go in the house, they're always putting down their 14-year-old son. Why can't you be more like your brother and sister? Why can't you get better grades? Why can't you be on time? All these string of whys. And at first, this boy would pull back. At first, he'd be uncomfortable. He'd just sit there and he'd pull back. And he didn't want to talk to anybody. And then he'd just say, "Get off my back and leave me alone." And he'd take off. And sometimes he wouldn't say anything at all and just leave. Anyway, about a year ago, his parents came back from a party at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I know because they called me sometime around 4 o'clock in the morning. They came in, they opened up the front door, the bathroom door was closed. They broke down the bathroom door. This 14-year-old boy had hung himself in the shower! And there's a big note on the outside of the door that said, "But you didn't like me anyway!" If you can feel my anger now, it doesn't go away. I can't tell this boy that he's okay. I can't tell this boy don't listen to the put-downs. I can't tell this boy he has some value. He's history. He's never going to influence one more person in his life. We are all so busy working off of other people's standards that we can't see our own value. What's your absolute favorite car in the entire world? Porsche? Tell me what color. Black. What's your absolute favorite car in the entire world? Lamborghini. Tell me what color. Black. Absolute favorite car in the entire world? Porsche. What color? Red. Two Porsches, one Lamborghini. Let's assume the three of you really own these cars. And you love these cars. They're the best thing you've got. The best thing you've got. And you've taken a lot of extra time working on those cars, and they just look great. And yesterday you spent, because it was a decent day, yesterday you spent some time in the garage just polishing it up, and you've driven the car to school this morning. And all three of the cars are sitting in the parking lot, right next to each other. Now let's take it one step further. Let's assume that I'm driving through the parking lot with this enormous crane with a wrecking ball on the crane. And I get to your Porsche, and the first thing I do is I swing the wrecking ball back, and I go wham! And I rip off the entire front end of that car. Then I smash it once on the top for good measure. Then I move over to your Lamborghini, conceivably a $50,000 car, maybe more. And I take the wrecking ball and I just rip off the side doors. And then I smash it one time in the front and smash it in the back so it's like an accordion, so it looks like a demolition derby car. Then I move over to your Porsche and I take the wrecking ball and I go wham, 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 like a riveter, so if there was a back seat to that car, it is now the front seat of that car. There is no insurance on these cars, guys. You have 41 months of payments. In the case of the Lamborghini, over $1,000 a month. I'm going to get into my car, and as I drive out of the parking lot, I'm going to wave to you guys. What do you want to do to me before I go? Shoot me. Want a big gun or a small gun? Any gun. What do you want to do to me before I go? He's already shot me. Not much left. You beat on my head. Somebody get me that cup of tea. What do you want to do to me before I go? Smack up what was left of me. Thank you. You guys are pretty good, but the best threesome that I ever heard was that somebody wanted to take the wrecking ball and smash my head. Another wanted to set my body on fire. And the third person wanted to spit on my ashes. Pretty gruesome thought. I want the three of you and everybody else in this room to stop and think about this. If these cars were the only reason people liked you for, if these cars were the only reason you had friends, if these cars were the only image that the rest of the world saw you through, then I have just destroyed you. I have just taken it all away. So if you don't feel good from the inside, if you need the stuff to make you feel good about yourself, somebody at some point can take it all away. It's just that simple. This point was never driven home clearer to me than in 1981 when I worked in the earthquake area in Italy. I went over there. The earthquake was in December. I went over there in January with a relief team. Everything people owned was gone in 38 seconds. Everything people owned was gone in 38 seconds. Imagine you left your house this morning and you came back after school and it was all destroyed. That's what these people felt like. The ones that decided to stay and rebuild decided because they had friends there. They felt a sense of community. They liked being there. They cared about what was going on around them. And they decided to rebuild with a chance that it could happen again. Now, most of you are saying, hey, listen, this guy's crazy. I'm going to go out and get all the things I want now, and then I'll deal with the priority of people first and things second. So let me ask all of you a question. And if you can answer this question, I will buy you dinner any place of your choice. How do you know? How do you know that you don't only have 6 months to live? How do you know that you don't only have 6 months to live? Last Friday, I was driving down. I was going to downtown Detroit to work on a video downtown, and I passed by a guy in his Mercedes that had smacked up against one of the dividers. For all intents and purposes, it looked like he got killed. I'm sure that that guy did not get up that morning and say that this is the last day of the rest of my life. There was a Romulus high school student that was recently killed. He walked into school. 2 friends of his were fighting. He went to break up the fight. One guy pulled a knife, put it into his gut. This guy died on the way to the hospital. I'm sure that he did not get up and say that this is the last day of the rest of my life. There are no guarantees. Raise your hand in the room if you've been to a funeral in the last year. Now raise your hand in the room if you've been to a funeral in the last year of somebody that you thought died too young. Devastating, wasn't it? We all magically believe that just because we're here right now, that all of a sudden we're going to reappear here tomorrow. And we're really surprised when it doesn't happen. But there are no guarantees. And as I said before, we are so busy working off of other people's standards that we can't see our own value. Does anybody have a dollar bill here? Got one? Okay, would you stand up for me? All right, would you hold up the dollar? Do me a favor, would you tear it in half to me, please? Yeah, tear it in half. All the way down. Motivates you, if that is the only reason that you have to live, if that is the only reason that you get up every day for, there will never be enough of it. Chip, how many people do you know that are really fulfilled and happy in their lives? Give me a figure off the top of your head. 50. How many people do you know in your life? A couple hundred, thousand? So how many people do you know that are really fulfilled and happy in their lives? 15. How many people do you know in your life?
Probably 100, 200.
A couple hundred. 37 people here. Can't see. Excuse me. How many people do you know that are really fulfilled and happy in their life? How many people do you know that are really fulfilled and happy in their lives?
Nobody's wrong there.
We get through. How many people do you know that are really fulfilled and happy in their life? Yes. Give me a figure. 20. How many people do you know in your life? Hundreds. How many people do you know that are really fulfilled and happy in their life? Not be able to name 5. How many people do you know in your life? Hundreds too. Every one of you stop and think about this. Stop and listen to the comparisons on this. There's probably 1,200 of you in this gym now. Based on those odds, we've probably got 75 people out of several thousand that are fulfilled and happy in their lives. On the basis of those odds, maybe 20 of you in this entire room are really going to be fulfilled and happy. Is it going to be you? 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 Who knows? Who knows, and who knows how much time you have to be able to deal with this? There are no guarantees of time. Raise your hand in the room if you come from a divorced family. Now raise your hand individually and tell me why you think there's so many divorces in this country today. Yeah.
Because people can't get along.
People can't get along. Anybody else? Wait, shh, because you won't be able to, I have to repeat it, and you won't be able to hear me. Tell me how.
I think people marry people they think they can change.
People marry people they think they can change, yes.
People can't trust each other.
People can't trust each other, yes. Wait, shh. People don't think about it, yeah. Nothing lasts forever. I think that's the name of the song. Social status, yes.
People's needs are different.
People's needs are different, yes.
They're too young.
They marry too young, yes. People do change, yes.
They marry and expect too much.
They marry and expect too much. One more, anybody? Yeah. People have different goals. Okay, last one.
People don't know who the people are that they're really marrying.
Last point. Question for all of you. Do you think that people really know each other before they get married? They should. My good friend in Detroit reason that people are in his courtroom getting a divorce is that they say that the other person has changed. The other person never changed. The other person was in there in the first place. We just don't really know each other. We are so busy working off the image that we can't see who we really are. Can I have the introduction? Thank you. This introduction, all the things that were read, are not me. They're the things I did. They're not the person who I am. The person who I am was pacing out in the halls, walking outside, trying to find some quiet space to get the courage to come out in front of all of you. I changed schools 5 times between grade school and high school. It left me so incredibly shy inside, with so many fears and so many insecurities, that those are still there. If you had a party in this gym, and I didn't know any of you, I would probably walk in here, go over to the food table, grab some food, look around, and walk out. I know I've done it, because it's too difficult for me to walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, my name is Jim." It's just too difficult. I came back on a plane from Seattle last month, sat in the center section of the plane, the center aisle. There were people on the right of me and on the left of me. I did not talk to either person for the entire trip, except to say, "Would you mind letting me up just so I can walk around?" Because it's too difficult. I was an athlete. I got decent grades. And I tried to kill myself 3 times. I was an all-state football player. I tried to kill myself 3 times because I was working off the image. There was a student at Greenville High School, when I first started speaking, that got up. He was captain of the wrestling team, and he got up in front of the entire school. He said, "How many of you know me?" And every hand raised. He said, "None of you know me." And he proceeded to tell everybody what he was inside, some of his fears, some of his insecurities, who he was. And 50 people were moved to get out of the stands to come over and hug him and care about him. And he came back up to the mic. He said, for the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. We are all so busy working off the image, nobody knows who we are. Raise your hand in the room if you've got a best friend. Now raise your hand, wait, because I can't shout over all of you. Raise your hand and tell me what makes, raise your hand individually and tell me what makes that person a best friend to you. Somebody. Yeah. What makes that person a best friend to you? She's always there when you need her. Somebody else. What makes that person the best friend to you? Yeah.
Willing to spend time.
Willing to spend time with you, yeah. She understands you, yes. Makes you feel comfortable, yes. Trust, yeah. Open up, yes. She cares about you. Anybody else? Communication. What makes that person the best friend to you? Somebody. Yeah. She likes you for what you are, yeah. Never puts you down. Anybody else? What makes that person the best friend to you? Somebody. Question for all of you. Why didn't any of you mention the grades that person had, the clubs they belonged to, the sports they played, the car that they drove, the money that they did or didn't have. Doesn't matter. Why didn't any of you mention that? Someone said it doesn't matter. Why didn't any of you mention that? Why didn't you mention the grades or the clubs or the car or the money?
Doesn't make a person.
It's not what makes a person. Not important. Why do we spend so much time and energy with that? And let me show you something else that's not important. If you were killed on the way home tonight in an automobile accident, and we were having a memorial service in this gym for you, would you want people only to remember you for the Porsche?
No.
How do you want people to remember you?
For what I was.
For who you are. Want people to only remember you for the Lamborghini? How do you want people to remember you?
For what I was.
For who you were. You want people to only remember you for the Porsche? How do you want people to remember you? For what you were. Isn't it interesting, everyone? Not more than 10 minutes ago, these three guys were prepared to rip me apart, to tear off my head, to kill me, to take a gun to my head over 3 cars that they don't want to be remembered for. Isn't it interesting that these 3 guys were prepared to kill me over a car that they didn't want to be remembered for? We complicate our lives. It is so simple. Stop and think about how you want to be remembered. Stop and think about how you want to be remembered and put it up at the top of the priority list in your life. If you want to be remembered as a great friend, put it up at the top of the priority list. If you want to be remembered as a caring person, put it up at the top of the priority list. If you want to be remembered as somebody that was willing to go out of the line for people that they cared about, put it up at the top of the priority list. If you want to be remembered as somebody who was understanding, put it up at the top of the priority list. And hope against hope that you're going to have the time to live it out. There are no guarantees. Raise your hand in the room if you went to that funeral of somebody that died too young that you didn't get a chance to say goodbye to. There's an emptiness inside of all of you that raised your hands that nobody is ever going to be able to fill. I come from a family where I spent all of my life being taught that it was wrong to tell somebody that you cared about them. And so I never, ever told anyone in my family that I loved them, because I was told that it was too unmanly, it was too weak. And so I spent all my life not being able to express my feelings or tell people that I really cared. And I spent all my life feeling alone. 2 years ago, my father had 2 heart attacks. And after he got out of the hospital, I had a speaking engagement in New York. And I called him up, and I wanted to tell my father for the first time in his life that I loved him. And I was so panic-stricken that even when I got on the phone, I said to him, I said, Dad, let's get together for dinner. And my father says, listen, I got a dinner appointment. Can you make it for lunch? And I rearranged my entire day, just to tell my father that I loved him. And I was panicked. I was so afraid my father was going to reject me. So afraid my father was going to say, hey, listen, thanks, son. We'll go on to another conversation. I was so afraid of that I got to the restaurant 15 minutes before the time I was supposed to be there. And I started walking around the block, just getting up my courage, trying to overcome my fear. And I got into the restaurant 15 minutes late. And my father was sitting in there. And everything is run in my father's life on time. Everything is exacting. Everything is measured out by time. And the first thing he did When I walked through the door, the first thing he did was jam me. Why are you 15 minutes late? You're always late. Why can't you be on time? You know I've only got an hour for lunch. And I started pulling back. And I said, hey, listen, this guy's not worth it. Why should I bother to tell him that I care? And I looked over at my father. He probably lost 50 pounds since the heart attack. I didn't think he was going to live out the year. And I realized that if there was ever going to be a time, I had to do it then. And I looked over to my father and I said, Dad, I want to tell you something. Thanks for standing by me. Thanks for being my friend. Thanks for waiting up till 2 o'clock in the morning when I didn't show up all night. Thanks for bailing me out a couple of times. Thanks for at least always being there. I really love you, Dad. For the first time in my father's life, I didn't even see it in my grandpa's funeral. For the first time in my father's life, I looked over and I saw my father cry, and I reached over and I grabbed him, and all of a sudden, he'd given me permission to care. And I reached up and I just grabbed him and I held him, and we stood in the middle of the restaurant for 5 minutes, just caring about each other. And it ranks at the top of the best moments of my whole life. And I got together with my father the next morning for breakfast, and he said, I'm so happy that you took the time to care about me and to tell me and to express it. Because you see, I was taught by my father that it was wrong and it was weak. I was told by my father that it wasn't worth it to care. And so I just handed it down to you. When I shared this story at Grosse Pointe North High School, a girl was moved to get up out of her seat and to run to the phone. Her father was at Crittenden Hospital. And she told him for the first time in their lives that she told him that she loved him. And she went over to the hospital after school and stayed there till 1 o'clock in the morning. 3 or 4 hours past visiting time. And she told him all the things that she had always wanted to tell him, all the things that were inside of her. And he died on the operating table the next morning. She called me up the first day of grief. The first day he died, she called me up. And she said, thanks. I never would have had the courage enough to tell him. I never would have had the courage enough to tell him that I cared. I spoke at a school in the UP where a girl wasn't so lucky. She was moved to go home and tell her father how much she loved him. She ran home after school. She got there was an ambulance in the driveway. Her father, 38 years old, was cleaning out the garage, dropped dead of a heart attack. She also called me. She called me to tell me, please convince people to tell somebody that they care about, that they really care about them, because there is no guarantee that that person's going to make it home. Many of you in this room have best friends that you have never told you cared about them. Many of you in this room have best friends that have helped you through some tough times. Realize that there is no guarantee that that person's going to make it home tonight. No guarantee. The sad thing is that most of you in this room are too afraid you'll get a chance. This part of the talk to me has always been the best part of the talk because you guys own it. I've seen incredible courage during this part. Was a young boy at Mendon High School who was no more than 3 feet tall with birth defects that got up in front of the entire student body and he said to everybody, he said, I didn't mean to be like this. I didn't mean to look like this. I have no friends. I walk down the hall and most of you look away. Please care about me. I feel alone. Please care about me. A 100 people jumped out of the stands and hugged this guy. And he said, I know this doesn't change my appearance. I know that I'm always going to look like this. I know people are going to look away. But I'm going to try to remember this one time when people were willing to care about me. I saw a captain of the football team in a high school near Lansing pull a knife out of his back pocket, hold it up to his throat, and say, this is where I was last Saturday night. If it wasn't for my friend John in the audience, I'd be dead now. And John jumped out of the audience, and they ran over to each other and just cried together, and everybody in the school got up on their feet and gave a standing ovation. 2 football players willing to cry in front of the whole school, and people still willing to get up and give a standing ovation. The biggest act of courage that I have ever seen was a homecoming queen at a school not too far away from here. She was leaving school every day at about noon. Constantly looked like she was in pain. She got up in front of the entire school. She said, you know, I've been so afraid to share this with all of you, so afraid you're going to reject me, that I didn't know how to tell you this. Most of you wonder why it is that I leave every day around noon. Well, I have to tell you that I was diagnosed as having cancer and I'm taking chemotherapy treatments and I just can't stay. The pain gets too great. I'm so afraid. And in front of the entire school, her hair was falling out from the chemotherapy treatment. She pulled off her wig in front of the entire school. And she said, I need all of you now. I don't know whether I'm going to live. Please care about me. I had to get out of the way to empty so that the stands would empty up. While they ran up and just hugged her and cared about her. I got a letter from her 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Saying that in the letter it said the courage of my friends has helped me give me courage. We all want someone to care about us for who we are. But we're too afraid. We're too afraid to let people care about us. So we hide behind the image. The most important part of this sharing session is that if you get up and you tell a friend, just like the football player did, if you tell a friend in the audience how much you care about them and how special they are and how they've helped you through some tough times and how they've been there for you, that friend or friends or however many you say better get up out of their seats and also find a way to care about you. First time I ever did this was at a high school in Detroit. And a girl got up. That's why support is so important. A girl got up and she said, I want to be a great singer someday, and I want to thank all of you for giving me the encouragement. And everybody in the room laughed at her. Nothing I could do at that moment could take away her pain. Maybe the next time she got up, or took a shot at being a good singer, she'd remember. If you have a best friend in this audience, if you have somebody that's stuck by you, that's been there when they needed you, when you needed them, in a couple of minutes, take some courage and find a way to share this. I've done every high school in this area. People have been moved to get up, and I've heard such incredible courage and such caring. I've watched whole schools come together. I'm going to start off this sharing session. And then if you have somebody in the room, please realize that there is no guarantees that that person will make it home tonight. I understand you've had a death in this school in the last 2 weeks. Many of you did not get a chance to say goodbye to this person or to tell them that you cared. Realize today that you got a chance to say goodbye to and to tell each other how much you care, too.
My name is Sean Daniel. I'm from Gibraltar, Michigan. It's about 40 miles south of Detroit. And I came up with Jim this morning, or I came last night, about 3 hours, just to share something with you that happened to me in my life. I'm 20 years old, so I'm able to relate to some of you people, 18, 17 years old. When I was 13 years old, my best friend was my oldest brother. I had 3 older brothers. Paul was my best friend. He was 18 years old, and here was little old Sean, 13 years old. I went to his parties. He took me to my hockey games. He took me everywhere. He was so proud of me, and I was so proud of him. It was just a great friendship. I played a lot of hockey. And he came out in Livonia one time. And Paul was on his way to my hockey game. My parents and me were at the hockey game. This is the second period. And I still haven't seen Paul. He usually stands behind the hockey net and watches me. Him and a couple of his buddies. Paul never showed up. End of the second period, Coach whistled me over to my mom and dad who were at the end of the bench. My mom and dad said, Paul's in a bad accident. Automobile accident. We got to go to the hospital. So I immediately ran to the locker room, changed my clothes, and we ran to the hospital. This is a cold February. He got hit by 18-wheeler. I was lonely. It was like somebody I lost so close to me. It left him a quadriplegic, paralyzed from the neck down, 18 years old. Here I was, 13 and 14. My best friend can't even move. And I go back and I talk to my brother he lives in Wisconsin now. And when I'm 15, 16, 17, going through high school, and here's Paul who's unable to move. Here I want the fast car, the Lamborghini, or whatever you call it. Lamborghini, whatever. I want the fast car, I want the most beautiful girl. I want the A's, I want this, I want that, I want this. I'm so greedy, and here my brother can't even move. And he told me one thing that sticks in my mind, and it'll always stick in my mind. He says, it's not what I've lost, it's what I have left. Meaning all this is a shell. Take my clothes off. You can be fat, you can be thin, you can be tall, you can be skinny. It's only a shell. It's all on the inside of a person. Be the best you can be. Dream the impossible dream. Live. Enjoy. Treat people for what they are. Be the best you can be. And so when I went through high school, knowing that my brother couldn't even move, I got involved in anything I could. People. I got involved in football. I got involved at the assembly. I'm so nervous this morning. I got involved in announcement schedules. At the end of the day, I had a radio program. I ran for the school board. I'm on a school board. At 18 years old, I was on the school board. Just get involved. Do the best you can do. Accept people for what they are. Don't look at them and say, oh, he looks like a nerd. I don't want to talk to him. Or he looks like somebody I don't want to talk to. He still hurts. He still feels loneliness. And he still feels good about himself. I want to play with you right now a song.